All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, we're going depth on something that's maybe not the flashiest thing in the world, but something that if you work with financial data a lot like I do, you're going to want to know this. We're diving deep on the currency function in Excel's Power Query. And I think if you're familiar with Power Query, you know that it's a really powerful tool.
Very powerful, for
transforming data and shaping data and getting it ready to actually analyze. But one of the things that it does is that it handles currency formatting really well. And this is a function that can save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches, I think.
For sure. And errors too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a great article from Microsoft that kind of lays out how this function works. We're going to kind of break it down and talk about why it's so useful. So first of all, I guess maybe let's just start with what is Currency.From? How do you use it?
So Currency.From is basically a function that converts a value into a currency value. And so what's interesting about it is the syntax is really simple. It just takes in one required argument, which is the value that you're trying to convert. But you can also add a couple of optional arguments to it.
Oh, right.
That allow you to really get specific about how you format that currency value.
Interesting. So I guess the most basic usage would just be if you have a column of numbers or whatever, and you just want to tell Excel, hey, these are all dollars.
Yeah, exactly. So you would just you would reference the column that contains your data,
right? And
you could use the currency from function, and it would just go through and convert all of those values to currency values,
right?
And the default is going to be based on your system's locale.
Right.
So if your system's locale is set to the United States, then it would just format everything as US dollars.
Makes sense. But you mentioned the optional arguments. And one that I noticed in the article is this culture argument. And I'm kind of curious what that's all about because it's currency. So is it something beyond dollars or euros or what? What is this culture argument?
So the culture argument basically allows you to specify the specific region that you want to use for the formatting.
Oh, I see. So if you're working with data that's from Japan.
Exactly.
You want to use yen. So you would specify that. Gotcha. Yeah. And you could do that using what's called a culture code. So you would just provide the culture code.
Oh, interesting.
For the specific region that you want.
For Japan, what would that be?
So for Japan, it would be JJP.
JJP, okay.
And for the United States, it would be in US.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's really granular control, I guess, over how that currency is displayed.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility. And I think that's one of the really powerful things about this function is that it's not just about converting it to a currency value, but also
making sure that it's formatted correctly based on the region that the data is coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's funny because you think about currency, it seems it's just a number.
Right.
With a dollar sign or euro sign in front of it or whatever. But there's actually...
Right. There's more to it.
A lot more to it, yeah. Yeah, the way it's displayed, the decimals.
Decimals.
Yeah, all that stuff can be different based on
absolutely
where that data is coming from.
And that's where this function really shines, is because it takes care of all of that for you.
Totally. So we've got the culture argument. There's another one here in the article that says rounding mode. And I got to be honest, I don't even know rounding mode. What is that? Why is that important?
So rounding is really important when it comes to financial calculations because even small rounding errors can add up over time and lead to significant discrepancies.
That makes sense.
And so the rounding mode argument allows you to specify how you want the values to be rounded.
Okay.
And there are a number of different rounding modes available, but the default one is called roundingmode.tovine. And what that does is it basically rounds to the nearest even number.
Okay.
And so this is actually a really common rounding mode that's used in financial applications because it helps to minimize rounding errors over time.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just rounding up or rounding down. It's something that's designed specifically to minimize those.
Exactly. It's a more sophisticated way of rounding that helps to prevent those errors from accumulating.
Interesting. So we've got the culture argument. We've got the rounding mode argument. Now, there's another interesting thing that the article mentions, which is this number.from text conversion. And I'm curious, when would you need to use that?
So the number from text function basically converts a text value to a number value.
Good.
And so you might need to use this if your data source contains numbers that are formatted as text. Oh, okay. So like
For example.
a text file or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like a text file. Or maybe you've got some data that's coming from a website and it's not formatted
Right.
correctly.
As a number.
As a number.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so in those cases, you can use the number from text function to first convert the text value to a number value.
Right.
And then you can use the currency from function to convert that number value to a currency value.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like a pre-processing step to get the data ready to be formatted as currency.
Yeah, it's like a cleaning step. You're cleaning up the data.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about all these different aspects of the currency.
Yeah.
From function. I guess let's talk about why is this important? Why should someone listening to this care about this function?
Well, I think the main reason why this function is so important is because it helps to ensure accuracy and consistency.
Yeah.
When you're working with financial data.
Like we were talking about earlier, rounding errors can be a big problem. And this function helps to minimize those errors. And it also helps to ensure that your data is formatted consistently.
Right.
Which is really important for things like financial reporting and analysis.
Right. Because if you're manually formatting everything,
right.
there's a lot of room for error.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also just a lot more time consuming to do it manually.
So this can automate a lot of that.
Exactly. And it just takes that burden off of you so that you can focus on the more important things.
The analysis.
Like the analysis.
Exactly. Now, the article does mention some limitation of the function, particularly about the range of values that it can handle. Is that something that should we be worried about that?
So the valid range for currency values in Power Query is from negative 922,337,285,685,477.5808 to positive 922,337,285,477.5807.
Okay, so basically, unless you're like some giant multinational corporation or the U.S. government, you're probably going to be okay. Okay, so it's good to be aware of, but it's not something to...
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, lose sleep over.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I think this is a really useful function. It's something that, like I said, I use it all the time, and it just makes my life a lot easier. So what do you think? What's the takeaway here for people who are listening?
I think the takeaway is that if you're working with financial data in Excel, you need to know about the currency-from function.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful tool that can save you a lot of time and headaches. And it can also help to ensure that your data is accurate and consistent.
So, yeah, check out the article. We'll link to it in the show notes. Yep. And play around with this function. See how it can help you in your work.
Absolutely.
I think you'll find it's really valuable.
Yeah, I think it's one of those hidden gems in Power Query that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
Once you know about it, it can really change the way that you work with data.
Absolutely. And that kind of makes me wonder, now that we know about this function for currency, what are some other functions in Power Query that can make our lives easier with financial data that we could learn about and explore?
Well, that's a great question.
I guess that's something for all of us to go out and research.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of powerful functions in Power Query, so it's definitely worth taking the time to learn about them and see how they can help you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see ya.
Bye.